By 1945, after World War II was over, we had between 35 to 60 million people dead, including the meticulously orchestrated and systematic genocide of around 6 million Jews and other groups who were considered undesired. And we had total devastation across nations from all over the globe, the likes of which the world had never seen. All of this can be argued was partly the result of a man named Adolf Hitler and his National Socialist Party's rise to power. Usually when we hear stories of tyrannical dictators inflicting terror on the world, we usually hear about how they seized power by force to impose their will. However, in the case of Hitler, he was essentially handed power by the German people of the time. What in the world would possess anyone to have thought this would be a good idea? Today we're going to look at the factors that led to this. This is the first of a two-part series. The first factor we're going to look at is the Beer Hall Putsch and party reorganization. In November 1923, in the earlier days of the Nazi Party, there was an attempt by them to overthrow the German government of the Weimar Republic by force. They did this by staging a march on the capital of Bavaria, Munich, attempting to take control of the government. This was a failure that resulted in the death of 16 Nazis and the imprisonment of their leader, Adolf Hitler. This was a crucial event as it showed Hitler that he would not be able to take power by force. As a result of this, he changed his approach to being focused on being democratically elected into power. Upon his release from prison, Hitler worked on unifying the nationalist and socialist sides of the party, setting out a clear plan for the coming years, and restructured the party to be more efficient. The Nazi Party adopted a new framework that divided Germany into regions called Gaue. Each Gaue would have its own leader called the Gauleiter. Each Gaue was then divided into subsections called Kreise, with each Kreise having its own leader. Each Kreise was also then divided into smaller sections with its own leader, and so on and so forth. Each section would be responsible to the section above them, with Hitler at the top with ultimate authority. The party also established new groups for different professions in the German population, such as lawyers and doctors and other professions. Groups for children were also established with the purpose of indoctrinating them with Nazi ideology in order to ensure the future of Nazi Germany. Notable examples of these include the Hitler Youth and the League of German Girls. The overall aim of this approach was to infiltrate already existing social structures and institutions to gain more supporters for the party. These changes transformed the party from a paramilitary organization focused on seizing power by force to one with aims of gaining power via elections and popular support. Despite changing their approach after the failed Beer Hall Putsch, terror and intimidation still played a role in the Nazi rise to power. This was done mainly through the SA and the SS. The SA, or Brown Shirts, were the Nazis' primary paramilitary organization. They were formed in the early years of the Nazi Party in 1921 and consisted mainly of ex-soldiers and unemployed men. They were characteristically violent and disorderly, and their main responsibility was protecting Nazi rulers and disrupting their political opponents, although they usually had free rein on their activities. In order to gain power democratically, the SA would need to be reformed to have a more stricter and defined role. This was done by a new leader called Franz von Salomon. The SS, established in 1925, were originally created as Hitler's personal bodyguards. However, they would eventually go on to police the entire Third Reich. They started off as a small subdivision of the SA with 300 members in 1929, but by 1933, the SS would have 35,000 members. Heinrich Himmler was largely responsible for this expansion when he took over the SS in 1929. Members were chosen based on their blind obedience, their racial purity. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have made the cut. Actually, wait, I'm not gonna lie. Let me not even make jokes in this one because this topic is just crazy. Yeah. Cool. Members were based.
That's a wild joke, though.
You don't think so?
It's not a wild joke. It's not. I mean,
it's calm. It's calm.
It's World War II, yeah.
Calm. We roll. Cool.
All the jokes have been made.
Yeah. Cool. Members were chosen based on their racial purity and blind obedience and fanatical loyalty to Hitler. They saw themselves as the ultimate defenders of the Aryan race and Nazi ideology, and they terrorized and sought to destroy any group or person that threatened this. Overall, the SA and SS were symbols of terror used by the Nazis to terrify their opponents into subordination, slowly eliminate them entirely, or simply scare people into supporting them. As the Nazis focused on gaining popular support, they also embraced the use of simple and effective propaganda. They had clear messages tailored to a broad range of people and their problems. For example, they would exploit people's fear of uncertainty and instability, and exploit the working class people's fear of unemployment. Bearing in mind that at this point, Germany had been through two major economic slumps after World War I. More on this later. They would include Jews, communists, and the November criminals as enemies, those that the Nazis held responsible for signing the Armistice of November 1918 and the Versailles Treaty in order to end World War I. An important figure in all of this was Joseph Goebbels, who joined the Nazi Party in 1924 and was promoted to Reich Minister of Propaganda by 1933. He used a combination of modern media such as films, radio, and traditional campaigning tools like posters and newspapers to reach as many people as possible. He built up an image of Hitler as a strong, stable leader that Germany needed in order to become a great power again. This was known as the Hitler myth. In addition to this, Hitler himself was a captivating and spellbinding speaker who tapped into the anger and helplessness felt by a large number of voters. Nazi propaganda promised to pull Germany out of the Depression, reverse the Versailles treaties, deal with the perceived threat of a communist uprising, put the German people back to work, and restore Germany to its rightful position as world power. Hitler and the Nazi Party were pragmatic and almost Machiavellian-like in tailoring their speeches depending on their audience. When speaking to businessmen, they toned down the anti-Semitism and instead emphasized anti-communism and the return of German colonies lost through the Treaty of Versailles. When addressing soldiers, veterans, or other nationalist interest groups, they emphasized military build-up and the return of other territories lost after Versailles. Fascinating. That brings us to the end of this video, although the story does not end here. We're going to return in a second video where we explore the economic and political instability of the time that contributed to Hitler's rise to power. Thanks for watching again, and please remember to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below as this really helps the channel. I'll see you again in the next one.